Good morning, Texas Sportsman here again with another review. This rifle is old enough to be considered a curio or relic. This is a model 760 Gamemaster 30-06 pump. This is an early manufacturer. It's got I believe it's a 1956 manufacture date. My dad bought this rifle for his father, my grandfather, from the PX on an Air Force base back in the day. This particular rifle, my grandfather, when he was alive, lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he put lots of mule deer in the freezer with this rifle. It's interesting because I did a little bit of research, and hunters from the day didn't really spend an awful lot of time with camouflage, with buck urine or doe urine. They didn't spend an awful lot of time with camouflage and boots and scent spray and all this other stuff. You know, basically when my grandfather went hunting, he went hunting in his work clothes. You know, he had a wood shop in his garage. He repaired furniture and things, and he also had a job at a local school district in maintenance. You know, working with their boilers and things of that nature. So when my grandfather went hunting, he put on his steel-toed work boots, and he put on his overalls and a work shirt as if he was going to the school district to do some work, and that's how he dressed. Outside of a ball cap and street clothes, there didn't seem to be a need for all this camouflage. My grandfather, my dad, and my two uncles would take their limit of mule deer, and there would be enough food to feed the family for a number of months. Interestingly enough, my dad really has had his fill of venison. The way he tells it, back when he was growing up, if you went to the grocery store to buy meat wrapped in plastic, or bought it from a butcher and got it wrapped up in butcher's paper and brought it home, that meant you were doing really well and you had money. Otherwise, you went hunting. So up until the 50s, and I'm sure even now, a lot of people go hunting just to put food, just to put meat in the freezer, because it's cheaper for them to do so than it is to buy at the grocery store. At least that's the way it was with my dad's family when he was growing up. So I can imagine eating venison over the years, a lot of it from mule deer, that he just really didn't have a taste for it anymore. And I can understand why. I have a lot of venison and wild pork in my freezer, and it's nice to mix it up with chicken and beef every once in a while. So, you know, you got to have a variety. Anyway, getting back to the rifle, my dad bought it for my grandfather. When my grandfather died, my dad got it back, and then when he passed away, he gave it to me. And I cleaned up the stock, fore end and front end. I was able to replace the rear sight from Numerick. The original sight was lost, so I replaced it. It had the front sight, and it had the receiver is drilled and tapped for loophole or Redfield basin rings. The receiver being drilled and tapped for scope mounts didn't start happening until about the mid to late 1960s. Up until then, people just hunted with iron sights. If my grandfather was alive today, he would have a derogatory term starting with the word P for anybody who felt that they needed to put a fancy rifle scope, a scope on a rifle, because he had hunted for all his life with open sights out to 100 yards, 150 yards. Even when he wore glasses, he was able to put game down, and there was never a need for a scope. I guess back in the day, those guys actually knew how to shoot a rifle and didn't have any problems using open sights. But then in the late 60s and 70s, many of the manufacturers started to started to drill and tap these receivers for scope mounts. And so that's the way it is. Now if you look at brand new rifles, very few of them even come with iron sights anymore. I believe you'll always find the Remington Model 700 BDL with iron sights, but I'm pretty sure at some point those iron sights are going to disappear. So I took the old scope off and the basin rings, and I found some screws to fill in for the holes. I've taken this thing out to the gun range, and actually I'm not too bad with it out to 100 yards. I don't think I'll ever match the accuracy of my grandfather, but I'm pretty good with it open sights at 100 yards. This particular rifle does not have a rubberized buttstock like some of the other ones do, so this can be somewhat of a challenge to shoot multiple times. But it is still an accurate rifle, 760 Gamemaster. I took it in to get it appraised, and because it's so many of them were made and so many of them survive today, that I think if I were to try to sell it, I don't think I could get more than $75 to $100 for it. So I think for sentimental reasons, I'll keep it. And until then, I don't know that I'll shoot with it, but I'll certainly keep it with the rest of my rifles. Thanks for watching.